Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and attention this week. Before I start running through my closing, I do want to point out, obviously, on Tuesday, Mr. Etheridge and I giving opening arguments or opening statements, and we talked about the evidence that we anticipated that you would hear and see during the week. Now, I always think that a trial is a sort of like a living, breathing organism. No matter how much work and plan you put into it, things change. Usually it's nobody's fault. That's the way it is. So what's important at this stage is, as the judge just told you, what the attorneys say is not evidence. What I told you in opening statements, what Mr. Etheridge told you in opening statements, is not evidence. Your verdict should be based on evidence that you heard from the witness stand and in the form of the exhibits. So if you heard something in opening that you didn't hear during the trial, you should disregard it. Now, I do want to talk to you about the jury instructions. The judge just read them to you. Each of you will have a copy that you get to take back with you into the jury room. And it is my job, the judge has explained the law to you. It is now my job to explain how that law pertains to the facts of the case. So what is Ms. Kuhn charged with? She has one count, first-degree premeditated murder. The judge read the three elements of the charge. Firstly, that Mr. Colin Turner is dead. The judge read you a stipulation on Tuesday. Both sides agree. Obviously, Mr. Colin Turner is dead. Second element, that his death was caused by the criminal act of Ms. Kuhn. Third, that there was a premeditated killing of Colin Turner. The judge just read to you the definition of premeditation. I talked about it briefly on Monday. It requires a conscious decision to kill. It means that somebody is not trying to wound, they're not trying to maim, they're not trying to injure. They make a conscious decision to take another human life. After that decision, there must be enough time for reflection. Now, the law doesn't tell you how long that must be. Seconds, minutes, days. There must be enough time for reflection between the decision to kill and the act itself. And again, so it is up to you to decide, is this enough time for reflection? Now, the example I often use for first-degree murder is, let's say I'm in an argument with somebody here in the courthouse. I walk out to my car, get my gun, come back and kill the person. That would very likely be premeditated murder. I've had time for reflection. I walk out, get my gun, I walk back. It's a short time frame, seconds, a couple of minutes. There is time for reflection. It's not an instantaneous decision, but there is time for reflection. Now, what's also key about that is it's time for reflection, not time for meditation or to, go to your happy place and cool down and make a calm, rational, logical decision. That is not what premeditation is. Someone can still be aggravated, mad, and it's still premeditated murder. I get my gun from my car and I'm coming back up here. I'm still mad. Otherwise, I wouldn't kill the person. But that is premeditation. So it's important to know what is required. An intent to kill, time for reflection. As it pertains to this case, look at the actions of Ms. Kuhn. And obviously, when it comes to premeditation, we're not mind readers. Right? We don't know exactly what was in her mind. That's why the instruction tells you, you look at the circumstances of the killing. You look at the physical evidence that indicates what the person's intent was. What was the person intending to do? So ask yourself, when Ms. Kuhn approaches the door to the garage, what was her intent? Her intent was to kill her husband. How long did she premeditate? We'll never know. A couple of minutes, 10 minutes, no way to know. But there was enough time for reflection. She intended to kill him as she's walking to that door. That is premeditated murder. Judge read to you the lesser included crimes, second-degree murder and manslaughter. I do want to touch on them briefly just to explain the differences. So second-degree murder also has three elements. You'll notice that the first two are the same as first-degree murder. Colin is dead, and his death was caused by Bree Kuhn's criminal act. It's the third element there is the difference. Third element for second degree is that there was an unlawful killing of Mr. Turner by an act eminently dangerous to another, demonstrating a depraved mind. Second degree murder does not require an intent to kill. It's an intent to do an act that is eminently dangerous to another, but not necessarily to kill. It may seem like a small distinction, but it's a very large difference. Example I often use is if I shoot somebody in the leg, they bleed out and they die. Shooting somebody in the leg is eminently dangerous. It's certain to cause great bodily harm. Was I intending to kill them? Maybe, maybe not. These are the definitions that the judge just read to you of eminently dangerous. Has to be reasonably certain to cause bodily injury. Is done from ill will, hatred, or spite, and indicates an indifference to human life. Now, it's important to note, as you're looking at this definition of second-degree murder, you may be thinking to yourself, well, she did all of these things, right? She did an act that was eminently dangerous to another. That act showed an indifference to human life. So as you're looking at these, you may think this fits what she did. But it's important to remember that, yes, she did all of this, but she did more than that. Because second-degree murder, there's no intent to kill, there's no premeditation. So when you look at those elements of second-degree murder, yes, she did all of that, but she did more. That's why it's a lesser charge. The other lesser charge is manslaughter. There are two elements. Again, first, calling that he's dead. Second, that it was an intentional act that caused his death. Now, with manslaughter, the act has to be intentional, but not the death, not the result. So, example I usually use is if I intentionally punch someone, that's an intentional act. They fall, hit their head, and die. That's an intentional act that has resulted in death. I did not intend to kill the person. I did not intend the person to suffer great bodily harm. My intent was to punch them. That's manslaughter. Intentional act results in death. Again, that is not what Bree Kuhn did. Well, she did do that, but again, she did much, much more. So it's a lesser charge. So again, just remember when you're looking at those, yes, she did those, but more. So that's the difference between the three charges. Judge read to you the definition of justifiable use of deadly force. I touched on this briefly on Monday. And you...
Does I have an objection? Can we approach?
Okay. All right, Mr. Alderman.
Thanks, sir. So Monday we talked about, I'm sure everybody has their own definitions of what self-defense is, and you all agree with me that you would apply the legal definition of self-defense. And this is what the legal definition of self-defense is. There's the person is justified if they reasonably believe the force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or another. Now, several keywords in that are there has to be a reasonable belief. So if somebody, gives me an odd look, and I think they're about to kill me, and I use deadly force, that would not be self-defense because it has to be a reasonable belief. It's not just what I believe. It has to be a reasonable belief. Another important word in that sentence is prevent, i.e., it's something that's about to take place. It's not something that's already happened. There's a difference between revenge and self-defense. Self-defense has to be to prevent a future event. It also requires that it's imminent. In other words, if I tell somebody I'm going to stab you in 2 weeks, that is not an imminent threat. It has to be about to take place. The person is a threat, an imminent threat. It also has to involve death or great bodily harm. So if somebody pokes me in the chest, do I have the right to defend myself? Absolutely. Do I have the right to use deadly force, kill the person? No, because there's no imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. So self-defense is not a blank check. If somebody threatens you or does something, does not mean you just have the right to do whatever you think is necessary. There has to be an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm for you to be justified in using deadly force. Another thing I want to touch on is that there is no duty to retreat. In Florida, if you're in a place you have a right to be, whether it's your home, the gym, on the street, you're in a place you have a right to be, you're not breaking the law, you have no duty to retreat. Commonly, people refer to it as a stand your ground. You get to stand your ground. So for example, if I'm standing next to my running car and somebody is 50 yards away walking towards me and they're threatening, they're yelling at me, and I can get away safely, I don't have to. I can stand there, stand my ground, wait for that person to approach me. And then as soon as they pose an imminent threat, maybe they're a few feet away, I get to defend myself. But what does that not entail? Right? It's a duty, no duty to retreat. But if that person is yelling at me from 50 yards away, I approach them to initiate a physical confrontation, that would not be self-defense. You don't have a duty to retreat, but you can't advance. There's a big difference between standing your ground and advancing to seek a physical confrontation. It also requires that the danger must be so real that the person thinks that such force is necessary. And it's not, again, it's the last sentence talks about a reasonably cautious and prudent person must believe that the actions are necessary. So it's not what some nervous, trigger-happy person thinks. A reasonably cautious and prudent person must believe these actions are necessary to defend myself or another from what's about to take place. This is the verdict form the judge just read to you, so I'm not going to read through all of it. It looks convoluted. It's really not. Ultimately, you have 4 options: first-degree murder, second-degree murder, manslaughter, not guilty. As the judge read, if you come back second-degree murder or manslaughter, you have to answer the questions about whether this case involved a firearm, which obviously it did. So if you were to find Ms. Kuhn guilty of second-degree murder or manslaughter, you would answer yes, she used a firearm. If you find that Ms. Kuhn guilty of first-degree murder, check that box at the top, you're done. Judge read to you the reasonable doubt. I'm not going to read it to you. This is the standard that you're to apply, that you're to hold the state to. Not all doubt, not every doubt. I gave you the example on Monday about the rain example, and what is the reasonable conclusion from the evidence. And this standard applies to those 3 elements of first-degree murder. You believe the state has proven those 3 elements of first-degree murder? You find it guilty. Another important thing to note is You can have reasonable doubt about things outside the elements. The state does not have to prove every little aspect of the case beyond all reasonable doubt. If you're not sure what color Colin's truck was, like, oh, I can't, I'm not sure if it was red, if it was blue, that's fine. That's not an element the state has to prove. So always go back to that I believe it's the second page. What are the 3 elements the state has to prove? That's it for your verdict to be guilty. Weighing the evidence. Ultimately, your job as the jury is to decide what is credible, what is believable, what is reliable. The attorneys, myself, Mr. Barnes, Mr. Etheridge, we can introduce evidence, but what we think about the evidence doesn't matter. It's your decision. You get to decide what to believe, who to believe, how much to believe. That is your job. And just use your common sense. That's a lot of times what these cases come down to. Use your common sense in evaluating what somebody is telling you. Does it make sense? You can believe or disbelieve any part, any testimony or any evidence. I always think of it sort of like a buffet. You can pick and choose whatever you want to believe, how much to believe. That is entirely your province. 3.9 also indicates all the factors you can use to evaluate the testimony of a witness, which again is a very important job. And you should use these criteria in evaluating every witness that you heard from, both from the state and from the defense. Now you see that many of the state witnesses, a great deal of what they testified to, what they saw, what they heard, what they did, was on camera. That's one of the great things about the body cams, is that we're not reliant on somebody's interpretation or their memory. For example, Deputy Lynn, he had contact with both Colin and Bree right before the murder, about 45 minutes. I think he left about 45 minutes before the shooting. Now we're here 3 years later. We don't have to rely on what he thought they said or what he believed their attitude was. You got to see it and hear it for yourself. So, no disrespect to him, but if his memory isn't that great about what happened, you've seen and heard it. You know what happened. Now, when you apply these criteria to the testimony of Eric Kuhn, you're going to see that his testimony should not be relied upon. Now, I do want to talk about it briefly. So, Mr. Kuhn's testimony, you heard from him about what he heard, and his testimony was all over the place. I mean, right from the get-go, he tells you this call was several minutes, and then seconds later he says the call was 45 minutes. And granted, he probably didn't have a stopwatch on him, but that's a huge difference. He said Colin was dragging Laney by the arm. 30 seconds later, he turns around and said, I never said dragging. You literally just said it 30 seconds ago. We went back and went round and round in circles about the statements early in the day about whether Colin was refusing to watch the kids or whether he was kidnapping the kids. And he said both. And he even said on the stand, how can it be both? I said, I don't know. I don't know. There was all the things that he was convinced that he told the police before they started recording. About dragging Laney by the arm, about Colin, or Bree saying that Colin's threatening to kill the kids, he's throwing her down. And he believed that he said all these things he told the police before they started recording, or he must have said it while Zoom was glitched. And I recalled Deputy Kelly, but I hope you understand that that's not how murder investigations proceed. These detectives don't have a full-on interview and then say, hey, now let's start the recording. I asked Detective Kelly, or Sergeant Kelly now, did you do that in this case? No. Have you ever done that in your career? No. Would you ever do that? Of course not. Although even then, when they're talking to him, they say, tell us everything. And he sat there and told you, oh, I didn't mention all the things I mentioned before because I didn't want to be redundant. He also talked about how them showing up, and he was so taken aback, and how unprofessional they were to just simply show up. And he was shell-shocked these detectives show up to talk to him. He's saying that he is the only witness in a murder case. He's on the phone. He hears the entire thing. He hears his sister being attacked, the only witness to a murder case, and then he is shell-shocked that homicide detectives turn up to talk to him. He should have welcomed them with open arms. Instead, he sat here and seemed to have absolutely no clue what he told them. You're going to rely on his memory and his version of events? No, you shouldn't. Ultimately, it was, I'm not sure exactly what his end testimony was, but the takeaway was that he hears this scuffle, altercation, fight. He hears Bree being hit. She's reporting, Al, that hurts. Colin, you're hitting me. Things that she's saying that Colin's doing. He hears kids screaming. Then he hears gunshots. All part of one sequence. You know, he tried to sort of equivocate between immediately, right after. He said it was all one sequence. This fight, gunshots. It sounds good, right? It sounds like somebody defending themselves. She's being attacked. He's threatening the kids. She's got to defend herself. I mean, you've heard the 911 recording. Right? Colin was not in a physical altercation. He was not attacking anybody. He was not dragging anybody. The kids weren't screaming. He's out on the phone having a calm, rational conversation. None of that was taking place. Two conclusions come to mind. Either Mr. Kuhn is mistaken about what he thought he heard, or perhaps he did hear, and he is right about some of the things he heard. I asked him, can you tell between someone hitting themselves, someone being hit by somebody else? No, of course not, on the phone. Because he's relaying, hearing this ruckus, this fight, right before the shooting. Right? Logically, that did not take place in Colin's vicinity. Otherwise, we would have heard it. He's locked outside in the garage. She's inside with the kids. What he's hearing could not have taken place near Colin. So if he's hearing somebody being hit, ow, that hurts, Colin, stop. She's doing that inside the house. Walks to the door, shoots Colin in the back. She now has a witness and an alibi for murder. Is that what happened? We don't know. What we do know is that Colin was not attacking her. So if what Eric Kuhn is reporting is accurate about this fight, it didn't involve Colin. And Deputy Hartberger told her earlier that morning, or early in the afternoon, when he did not arrest Colin, was there another witness? Now, he wasn't suggesting to her to sort of find a witness, but she knew something would happen. She needed another witness. Now, hey presto, she has a witness. At the end of the day, you just got to use your common sense. And you get to decide what to make of his testimony, what to believe, how much to believe. I would urge you just to disregard the whole thing. You can do that. You know, just because there are conflicts in the evidence doesn't mean that you have to believe one side. If somebody gets on the stand and insists that 2 + 2 = 17, you can go back to the jury room and say, I don't believe it. Because his statements not only were inconsistent in and of itself, it was also completely different than the version his sister gave. It's also contradicted by the physical evidence and any degree of common sense or rationality. Anyway, I'm not going to spend any more time on that. I hope you evaluate his testimony as you should. And at the end of the day, he's our brother. He told you about she was my protector growing up. Now she's on trial. And it's his turn to be the protector. So let's talk about the state's case. So that day, things got started, 12:54, when Ms. Kuhn calls 911 and reports that Colin is pushed her and thrown her down. And another interesting aspect of that 911 call is that the operator then tells her, do not interact with him. Right? Makes sense. She's reporting a physical altercation. Don't interact with him. So what does she do? Goes and grabs her phone and starts recording him, trying to provoke him into an argument. And I'm not going to play that whole thing. You have it in evidence. Those last couple of minutes, I think give you a good insight. If she goes out there and is trying to talk to him, and he says, I tried to talk to you. No, you didn't. He says, I tried to talk to you last night. And again, she is surreptitiously recording. She's got the phone held down by the side of her leg. Common sense would tell you, when someone's recording their partner, they're on their best behavior. Right? So when she's having this, I don't know if you call it an argument, this discussion with him, she's on her best behavior. Colin isn't. Clearly he doesn't know he's being recorded because the phone's down by her leg. So that is Colin as he is. And she kind of talks over him, and so it's hard to hear, but you can definitely hear it. When she's sort of going after him, he says, if you talk, I will listen. Depending on what you say, I may or may not respond. That is a very calm and rational response in an even tone. Like I said, and that was Colin in this discussion. And then they kind of go back and forth. I don't trust you with the kids. I don't trust you with the kids. I think what you get from that is she wanted an argument and was frustrated that he just did not seem to want to argue with her. Then she starts picking at him, oh, you're on disability for this, and, because she's talking about he's emotionally unstable. Given her position and the things she's been through, the old saying about if you live in a glass house, you shouldn't throw stones, because he could have come back and said, well, yeah, you've been Baker acted and you attempted to commit suicide. He didn't say any of that because it just seemed like he just didn't want to argue about it. So, but that is a good insight into sort of their relationship. And at that time, she's reporting, he's just throwing me down. She wanted him to say or do something stupid to the cops. So when they arrive, what did she tell them right off the bat?
What's going on today, ma'am?
So my husband is trying to take the kids.
What's up, big guy?
He threw me on the floor and pushed me against the wall.
And this all happened?
So even here, and every time after, the first thing out of her mouth every time is, he's trying to take my kids. And then she relates, he pushed me down. And then a few minutes later is when she talks about, she makes the comment to Deputy Hartberger that he either didn't catch or didn't acknowledge about he raped me over the weekend. But then she also made an interesting comment to her dad.
We had such a good weekend. He's my best friend.
Hold on, speak clearly.
We had such a good weekend together. That's what she's telling her dad later. Now, what does Colin say about what's been going on this day?
She called you right now because she figured figured out that I want to take my kids to my parents' house in Georgia for her and I to have more for me. I guess for me to have a break from her.
He wants to go to Georgia for a break.
This morning?
Yeah, this is probably right around 2 a.m. at this point.
Okay. So what happened today causing her to pick the phone up and call, I guess she called 911, I didn't look.
She found out I was packing my car.
That's what the upset was?
Yes.
That you're going to Georgia to see their grandparents?
Yep.
And your parent?
Yeah, they're my parents.
Okay. And your kid's grandparent, actually.
So Colin is not just talking about leaving, he's actively packing his truck. This isn't just sort of a idle speculation. He's packing his truck. He's getting ready to leave. And she knows that. This is from our interview later on that evening.
He was threatening to take the kids.
Okay.
He said that since I had tried to kill myself a couple months ago, that no judge in the world would give me custody of children. And he was packing.
So she says he's trying to take the kids, he's packing the truck. And she said, no judge in the world would give me custody because of her recent psychiatric issues. So she knows he's leaving, he's about to leave, he's going to take those kids, and she knows she's not going to win this custody battle. So she has to stop him from leaving, one way or another. Now, I wish I could stand here and say that nobody would ever accuse anybody of something falsely to gain custody of their kids, but that's not the world we live in. She had to stop him from leaving. He's packing his truck. He is leaving. She's got to stop him from leaving. And so conveniently, right before he's leaving to Georgia, she says he pushes me down. She wanted him taken to jail. And I think you can see that through her interaction with Hartbarger. Because when she realizes that's not happening, she doesn't fill out the witness statement he gives her because she's not getting what she wanted. Take him to jail, and then I get custody of the kids. So I think that should give you some insight as to her mindset as to how this all transpired. Now, obviously all the body cams you have, and you can watch any of them as you want. I try to be cognizant of your valued time. So you saw the interactions between them, and Colin's out there with the little kid, and they're looking at the truck, and they leave. And shortly thereafter, she locks Colin outside in the driveway. Why does she do that?
So I closed the garage doors and I locked the door and took the batteries out of the lock so that he could come in and take the kids.
So she locks him outside so that he can't come in and take the kids. Not because he's threatening me or he's going to hit me or she locks him out so he can't take the kids and go to Georgia. That's why she's locking him out. And then he's outside in the driveway in a hot summer Florida day, and he later on said, I was fine with being out there basically because I was away from her. And he calls her command. You heard from Mr. Forehand. And he's saying, she's cut off my access to finances. She's taking my credit cards. And he's looking for help. I mean, he's multiple places he's turning to for help. And unfortunately, he didn't get it that day. So he's out there for a while in the heat by himself, probably happy to be out there in the peace and quiet by himself. So at some point, Lainey wakes up, the 3-year-old little girl. She's crying, and so Bree Kuhn takes her, the 3-year-old, outside to Colin, so that Colin can help calm her down.
So I took her out front, and he was still there. So I asked her if she wanted Daddy. I gave her to him. And he wouldn't talk to me.
So, and I hope you can hear that. Again, at this point, they still have that space heater running, so it's hard to hear. And in here, unfortunately, the louder you turn it up, it gets kind of echoey or staticky. So again, you can listen to that. But what she says there is, Lainey was crying, I took her outside. I gave Laney to Colin, and then she says he wouldn't talk to me. She brings him the child so he can calm her down, and he wouldn't talk to me. Shortly thereafter, Colin calls 911. He's now locked outside with Laney, and you heard her on the 911 call. She's crying, she's upset, she's hot, she's bothered. So he's calling saying, look, now I care because we're both locked out, and I want to go back inside with my daughter. Deputy Jameson Lynn arrives and talks to both of them.
Took my photo ID, all my access to money and everything.
Okay.
And then took the kids inside and locked me out. So I've been locked outside in my driveway
Okay.
for the last couple hours.
Do you live here?
What's that?
Do you live here?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
co-owners. We're both.
Okay.
So again, I'm locked outside of my driveway. She's taking my stuff. I just want to go in my house.
Something about kids going to Georgia.
Yeah, that was the most closest alligator to the boat.
Okay.
But she was mad that I turned off the Wi-Fi last night, so she
Okay.
washed my laptop in the dishwasher.
Okay.
And that's kind of like the last straw.
You
So
guys,
is
are
it
you
legal?
guys, are you guys still married?
I mean, for now, yeah.
It's still legal and it's common
Yeah.
property.
Yep.
What's yours is hers and hers is yours, unfortunately.
Yeah, so she's
common
not
property.
allowed to stop me from entering my house.
If it's your house and you still live here, by all means, you got to enter your home however you got to enter your home.
So a couple of interesting things there. When Deputy Lynn asked him if you're still married, you saw Colin sort of involuntarily glance down at his wedding ring and said, for now. And I think you can see he's just, he doesn't want to talk to her. Deputy also tells him, it's your house. Whatever you need to do, kicking the door, breaking a window, it's your house. You can get in whoever you want. The other interesting thing about this interaction is you see Ms. Kuhn there in the background. And she is just staring him down while he's standing there. I mean, look at her body language. Look at what she's doing. She is staring him down. This is less than an hour before she murders him. And she seems very aggravated. And he's just calmly holding his daughter, talking about what's going on. That is a very powerful visual of what is about to happen and what her state of mind is. So then Deputy Lynn talks to her.
What's going on today?
Well, you guys were out here earlier.
Federal
He was
Vega
trying to take my
215,
kids.
10 4
I'm 10-4, thank you.
He was trying to take my kids to Georgia.
Okay.
I
Are they your kids or are they yours and his?
these two. Well, the
Again, first thing she complains, he's trying to take my kids.
out here because she's used to him and I, so I brought her out here.
Okay.
So he can help calm her down. He snatched her from me and then started trying to use her to,
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
He said, she doesn't want to come in the house unless daddy's there.
Okay.
Being manipulative.
Okay.
It's not a
So-
good environment.
So there, she's telling the deputy, he snatched Laney from me. You just heard her say she went out there and handed it to him. And then she accuses him of, he's being so manipulative. Well, make up your own minds about that. She continues.
Okay. All right. And same thing, if you change the locks, he's got every right to get in the house. However, he's got to get in the house, okay?
Okay.
If he lives here, he's got property here. For the betterment of your daughter, whatever you guys got going on, you got to put aside for the kids. You see
Well,
what
I
I'm saying?
agree, but he told me not to talk to him. So
Okay.
I'm not going to.
Again, she's complaining, he won't talk to me. That's what she keeps complaining about. He won't talk to me.
We can't say, well, you guys stay out in the front yard for the rest of your
Right.
life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I just
at the risk of,
yeah,
of a
I didn't-
potential
I didn't
argument.
call you. I just came out to
No,
get my
I
daughter.
get it. But like I said, I'm letting you know.
Okay.
At some point, we got to put our differences aside for the
Yeah.
kids, and we got to say, hey, look, you got a guest bedroom, I got my room, or vice versa, whatever it is. I mean, if y'all sleep in separate rooms, or maybe somebody, take a chill pill and sleep on the couch tonight.
Right, yeah, he
which
won't do that. He told me not
Okay.
to talk to him.
All right,
so
well.
I want to get my daughter out of the
Okay.
bugs and eat, if that's okay. And I have a 4-year-old
I'm
inside.
perfectly fine with that, but I mean, like I said, it's just something that we got to, I mean, if bringing your daughter inside means he gets to come inside too, that might be something where we got to say, look, let's make a compromise. if you want to come inside with her, that's fine. I'm going to go to the room, and I'm going to close the door, and I'm going to stay in here, but at least, your daughter's safe, and she's not, out here in the road or whatever, or in the heat, getting bug bites or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'm gonna grab her.
Okay. Let me just get some information from you real quick. What's the kids' names?
Kylie,
Is it KY?
K-Y-L-I-E, is my 12-year-old.
K-Y-L-I-E.
Kylie
Okay.
Kuhn. I'm sorry, I really have to go back in because my 4-year-old. Can I just go
Okay. Yeah,
there?
absolutely. Well, if he's gonna wait out here for just a second with her, I'll go inside if you want with you. And
I don't trust him alone with her.
okay, well then we can all walk back inside.
Okay.
All right.
I don't want that either.
Okay. Well, I mean that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so
But we need to check on a 4-year-old. We want to make sure the 4-year-old.
No, that's fine. My 12-year-old's in there. So
Okay. All right. So okay. So what's Kylie's last name?
Kuhn, K-U-H-N.
K-U-H-N. What's the middle name?
Should have one.
We should have one. Okay. What's her date of birth?
May 22nd.
Okay.
He called you, so can you get the information from him?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, are you not wanting to? I'm just trying to get the names of the kids.
Yeah, no, I gave them to the people earlier.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean,
She's not answering.
So I wanted you to see that longer clip because I think it's indicative of her state of mind and attitude during this whole thing. Again, she's complaining about that he won't talk to her. And then Deputy Lynn, bless him, is trying to propose solutions, compromises, ways to resolve the situation for the betterment of the children. And she is just not interested in any of that. She has no interest in that. And her entire demeanor is just sort of argumentative and combative. Now, if she's that way with a deputy, standing there in uniform, what's she going to be like with her husband? I mean, are you surprised that he keeps telling her, I don't want to talk to you? I mean, can you blame the guy? She is just clearly increasingly frustrated with the whole thing because she's not getting her way. I said, she's not interested in a compromise. She wants her way. She wants those kids. She wants him gone. And she's going to see to that. Meanwhile, in the background, you've got Colin just walking around laughing and playing with Laney. Does he seem aggravated or frustrated? I mean, he literally said, I'm happy that I'm locked out here in the driveway because I'm away from her. This is the situation 45 minutes for the murder. This is what's building and what's leading up to it. Ultimately, Deputy Lynn gets her to agree to let him inside with the child. She then locks him out in the garage. And Colin texts Hardy at 6:13 that he is locked in the garage. And you saw the text messages between Mr. Joyner and Mr. Turner. And Colin's saying, look, she's crazy as hell. And at 6:13 he says, she locked me in the garage. Why? Why does he say? He says she just locked me in the garage because I wouldn't talk to her. Which, as you've seen, is the thing she keeps complaining about. He won't talk to me, he won't talk to me, he won't talk to me. So then she locks him out in the garage. That's 9 minutes before he calls 911. 6:22, Colin calls 911. You've heard that call? He, on that phone call, is the same way he is at all of the times during that day. Whether he's on with 911, whether he's talking to the deputies, whether he's being secretly recorded, he's calm, he's rational, he's explaining what's going on. I mean, if anything, he just sounds a little disheartened. And he's relaying to them what's happened. She's locked me out in the garage. You guys have been out here twice today already. And she comes out there and shoots him. And it's so out of place and so shocking and with no context that you heard the surprise of the 911 operator who asks, what was that? Because there was absolutely no context. I mean, she works for 911. She probably hears a lot on 911 calls. People fighting, screaming, yelling, gunshots. But here there was nothing, absolutely nothing, until he got shot in the back. this is State's Exhibit 12. You can see that door to the garage leading out. And you can see the little Yeti cooler, probably, I don't know, 8 feet from the door, and where Colin was found. Not in the doorway, not by the door. He's well into the garage. What does Ms. Kuhn say about it?
Just for right now, okay?
Just for your safety, for ours, okay?
I'm a murderer.
So you listen. You're not. Listen to me. You're not under arrest right now. You're being detained. Okay? While we investigate.
No, you should arrest me. I killed my husband. Hopefully, I just shot him. Maybe he's not dead. He should not be dead.
She says 2 things there that are supported by all the evidence. 1, a murder. 2, he should not be dead. Absolutely. So let's talk about the injuries that Colin suffered. Gunshot wound to the upper back, comes out of his neck, ends up lodged in his wrist. Breaks his ribs, but this one goes through the trapezius muscles, the cervical vertebrae. Now, obviously we weren't there, we didn't see it. Logical conclusion is that he's either holding the phone or is like this as the bullet comes in the back, out the neck, and ends up into his wrist. Shot in the back to front. Second gunshot, again in the upper back, goes through his ribs, lungs, back to front, comes out through the chest. Third gunshot in the right of his back, again goes through his right ribs, lung, sternum, exits his chest. Fourth gunshot, then the left lower back, goes through his spleen, goes through his heart, and is ultimately recovered. You heard Dr. Oleski's testimony about these injuries, about how each one, likely in and of itself, would have been a fatal gunshot wound. And what does that tell you? These were kill shots. We talked about premeditation, the circumstances of the killing. What was her intent? How do we know what her intent was? These gunshots tell you her intent. 4 kill shots right to the back. Her intent was very clear. Now you have the pictures, of the autopsy pictures, which I'm not going to put up here, but if you have questions or want to look at them, they're all in evidence. You will see those wounds on his back that the doctor described. They are perfect little circles. I always think sometimes they almost look like cigarette burns, just perfect little circles, look almost harmless sometimes. Those are entrance wounds. Exit wounds he has on his chest are much larger, much more ragged as the bullet comes out. Those are very, very clear. I said, if you have any questions or as to what that evidence shows you, I would urge you to look at those autopsy photos. And you would clearly see the difference between entrance wounds and exit wounds. It's night and day. Plus the fact that he's got 4 holes in his back and 2 in his chest. He was shot 4 times in the back. That's what that physical evidence shows. It's very clear. So Ms. Kuhn is taken to the station, interviewed by Detectives Rowell and Kelly. Again, that's a fairly long interview. If you want to watch it again, you can. But I did want to just highlight some of the things that she talked about.
After they left, when I know I called my mom. He was in the garage again, and I locked him out. I locked it for some reason. I think to talk to him.
You locked him out for some reason, and that was
No,
to talk?
I locked him out. He was in the garage. I locked him out.
Okay.
But he was still in the garage. opening the door to talk to him. And, he tried coming in, so I blocked the door, and he kicked my foot, and was trying to push to go to the door. And I was trying to keep him out. I don't... And then I shot him.
So her version is she locked him out, she went to the door to talk to him, and he tried coming inside, and then was kicking her foot, so she shot him. Now again, you should be thinking to yourself, I've seen the physical evidence, I've heard the 911 call. That is not what happened. That's clear. But also, even if her version there is true, right, let's ignore the physical evidence for a minute, let's ignore the 911 call. Let's just say that version is true. She opens the door, he kicks her foot, she's trying to block him as he comes in. That's still murder. I read to you the self-defense instruction, imminent danger of death or great bodily harm. Kicking somebody in the foot doesn't mean you get to shoot them 4 times. And that's, I said, let's just pretend for a moment all of that was accurate. It's still not self-defense. That's her story. Now, you may ask yourself, why is she telling this story? And the logical conclusion that comes to mind is that she never realized he was on the phone with 911. Right? She opens that door, fires that first shot, and ultimately the phone was found sort of underneath him. She didn't know he was on the phone with 911. And she never realized the difference when he said, she just shot me. He didn't say, you just shot me. It didn't occur to her the difference. She didn't know he was on the phone with 911. So she's telling the detectives this, thinking, hey, there's no other witness besides my brother. And this is what happened. She continues.
He was still coming towards me. I don't think I shut the door, and I went. To get my kids, and I took him out of the house.
She is insisting after she shot him, he is still coming towards her. That's just not what the physical evidence shows. But that's her version. He's still coming towards me, even after I shot him, so I had to shut the door and get in the house to get away from him. That's not what the evidence shows. She continues.
Sure. So just to kind of...
I didn't mean to shoot him. It was at least twice I didn't mean to shoot him, but I did. And then he said something, and just the look on his face. That's what I'm saying.
What was the look on his face?
He was gonna kill me. And that's how I shot him.
Okay.
So, good bit to unpack in that statement there. She says, I didn't mean to shoot him. Okay. She wasn't cleaning the gun and it went off. Okay. She went to the door, shot him 4 times in the back. She's telling the police, I didn't mean to shoot him. You absolutely meant to shoot him and kill him. No matter how you try and describe it, that is crystal clear. I didn't mean to shoot him. Yeah, you did. And then she says, he said something and had this look on his face. He was going to kill me. That sounds good. Right? It sounds like self-defense. He was going to kill me. Well, you know what he was saying because you've heard it. He was speaking calmly in a rational manner. She is sitting there telling he was going to kill me. No, he wasn't. But again, she doesn't know he was on the phone. So in her mind, How would you disprove? And you think about this for a moment. And again, she may not, have not been aware of, forensic pathology, and I don't know how well that's commonly known. So let's ignore forensic pathology for a moment and consider her version here if Colin was not on the phone with 911. Could this version be disproved? Right? She's saying he's coming at me, he's gonna kill me, he's kicking me. Right? This is probably what we'd be left with. Luckily, Colin called 911. Unfortunately, Colin did not call 911 in time to save his own life. But him calling 911 hopefully will ensure that his murderer does not get away with it. She didn't know all that.
Why did you have the gun when you went to the garage door? Do you know?
I just wanted them to go.
Detective Rell asks you, why did you go to the door with the gun? The answer is because she wanted to kill her husband. That's clear. She tells him, I just wanted to go. He's locked outside. You're in the house. Okay, that's the opposite of I just wanted to go. That's, I'm going to go kill my husband. But she is sitting there saying, I just wanted to go. This is what she's telling the police. No, she had plenty of options. Now, again, she doesn't have a duty to retreat. She's not legally obligated to leave the house. But she's saying, I just wanted to go. No, you just wanted to go kill your husband. That's what she wanted.
I couldn't get in the front door because I had taken out the batteries from earlier.
The front door was locked. Colin couldn't get in the house. He was locked out. She couldn't even get back in the front door.
Go to jail. They don't.
Hey Bree, where were your babies at when this went down?
They were in my room.
They were in your room? Okay. Do they normally hang out in there, or did you tell them to go to your room?
I don't know.
You're not sure? Okay. You've got two small ones, and then you have a 12-year-old girl. Okay. Where was your 12-year-old at?
With them.
They were with them in your room?
Yeah.
Okay. Was he on the...
All the children are in her room. And again, we talk about premeditation, talk about the circumstances behind the killing. All the children are in her room. Her gun is kept in her closet. So again, whether it's 1 minute, 10 minutes, kids are in her room. Clearly, she goes to her room, retrieves the firearm, goes back to the door to kill Colin. That is premeditation. Judge, if you could blank the screen. Now that interview continues, and again, I'm not going to sit here and play the whole thing. You can watch it if you want, because the detectives continue, and they keep asking her very pertinent questions. What was he doing when you opened the door? Where was he standing? Did he have anything in his hands? And every time, she simply avoided the question. I mean, they must have asked her 5 times. Every time, she answers but says something like, oh, I just tried to help him, or there was so much blood. She does not want to answer those questions. And again, we know why, because we know what Colin was doing when she opened the door. She doesn't want to answer those questions. She doesn't have an answer for those questions. Your job now is to evaluate all the evidence you've seen and heard. And I hope you'll see that it's very clear what happened. She's getting increasingly frustrated throughout the course of the day. She's not getting her way. Colin is he doesn't want to talk to her. She knows he wants to take those kids. She knows he's going to win the custody battle. Now, again, premeditation does not mean a logical, calm decision, because obviously killing your husband to gain custody of your children is not a good plan. So premeditation is not planning or a calm, logical decision. It's just intent with time for reflection. The evidence shows, again, we'll never know exactly how much time. She locked him out, went and got her gun, went to the door, came back, and shot him in the back 4 times. That's the evidence. That is premeditated murder. Thank you.